Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Rock Pile tonight. Tonight, we bring you the No Huddle Podcast. Good to have the guys back. It's been a long football season in general. We had some shows scheduled, but unfortunately, with everybody's schedule, it was tough to get the whole group on. And we got Coach Medicis, who didn't get home till 2, 3 in the morning from their game last night down in New York City. We got C-Bus on tonight. I told him to go easy on me on Jim Harbaugh tonight. We got Jake's on, ready to jump on with us. We'll get right into it. If you have any questions, we're live tonight on Instagram for the first time, too. So if you have any questions, comments, I'll try to bring over what I can for everybody. So without further ado, let's get the boys on. What's going on, gentlemen?
How's it going?
Coach.
What's up, Rob?
Well, I was ready to say that's the kickoff show for this, but unfortunately, with everybody's schedules throughout the year, it was tough to get everybody on. But hey, at least we're going to do a final show here and talk bowl games, playoffs. I'm sure we'll have the over-under on how we talk about Fran Brown, a new Syracuse coach, doing some good things. And we'll see how many times C-Bus hits me on Jim Harbaugh tonight. But guys, I was sitting this week looking at some storylines coming into the year. And I think one of the big storylines in all of college football was Coach Prime, who Medicis and I were on the Prime wagon. And we said it, Nick, right? We said, We're not predicting he's going to go 9-3. We just thought that he was going to make a big splash. And they got off a 3-0 start, and then they faded down the stretch. But what did you guys think about Coach Prime in the season that he had and, what he's doing again in the transfer portal?
I mean, I'll jump in first. It's like you said, I thought we jumped all over it. The amount of money that he's going to bring into whatever institution took him, I think was going to be far more important than the number of wins he brings in on year one. And people got to remember that's a 1-11 team the year before in a Power 5 conference. So to come in and have the expectations that he was going to make it to a bowl game or compete for, a top 25 ranking was crazy. But I mean, he turned the roster over, whether you agree with it or not, kind of is irrelevant. That's what happened. And I think he's going to continue to do that. He brought in a ton of linemen on day one of signing day. So I think Colorado is going to continue to get better quickly. And again, not saying he's going to go out and win a national championship, but to put Colorado football back on the map and be relevant again is a huge accomplishment in such short time.
C-Bus, what'd you think on him?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of what we all kind of expected, right? I mean, great visibility to a university like Colorado that hasn't had it in years. But I do think as a fan that he has a lot of work to do, right? This is not going to be a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, but it is definitely going to be a long road for the Buffs for sure. But with the transfer and NIL, they'll continue to be competitive. I expect this year to just be a foundation year for sure.
Jake, did he live up to the hype at Colorado?
I think it was big that he started off 3-0. Got everyone there, got game day there that hasn't been there in a long time, and got everyone to start looking at his program. I think they just, with the lack of depth, that when he came in, he kind of cleared house and he didn't bring so much depth in. I think they got worn down, but they were in a lot of games. They played USC close. Oregon State, they played all those teams close and were relevant. And I think he's got that program going in the right direction. I think the biggest question is going to be is, what do you do next year? How big of a step can you take? Who are you bringing in? Because I know he let some of his coaches go and some of them left. So I'll be interested to see what other guys he brings in and can he take that next step?
I was really surprised, at a few things. The first one was normally most coaches, Jake, right? They build from the trenches and they work their way out.
Yep.
And Prime did it the complete opposite. He brought in the skilled guys, but the line was terrible, which I thought was a little different than I think most coaches would say how they want to start a team. But I think you can't take away the fact that when Colorado, I think, was on TV, the first 3 or 4 games of the season, and then they were still talking about Coach Prime. He brought in the celebrities. I mean, just the money alone that he brought that university, that I think they said it was they tripled. It was like $100-something million. I think he brought in just, whether it was apparel, whether it was ticket sales, local businesses in the area. So I think as far as what they brought him in for, I think he did everything that they asked him to do and then some, outside of the people that thought he was going to come in and go 9-3, 10-2 were being a playoff. I didn't think for once that that's what they were going to do. Not once in my mind that I think they were going to do that. But the big question that I had for him was, why demote the offensive coordinator, Sean Lewis, halfway through the year when they were scoring, 30, 40 points a game? They just couldn't stop anybody. And some people said, well, it was because he didn't want to run the ball as much, but then they didn't have a run game because their line stunk. That was a little weird to me. I don't know if it was something with his son. Maybe Sean Lewis wanted to run the ball more, and Deion said, no, we're going to throw the ball. So I thought that was a little weird. I think Sean Lewis is going to be a good head coach, but to me, it wasn't the offense that was his problem.
No, but they needed a scapegoat, and you're not going to blame it on the quarterback. That's your son. So, blame it on the OC and kind of move on.
C-Bus, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I didn't think he handled adversity extremely. I thought the adversity, he wore that pressure. I felt like more than I expected to see him do over the course of that losing streak.
Yeah, and the other thing, guys, something coming into this year, and I want to talk about it. Nick C-Bus and I, the Big Ten guys, coming into the year, one of the things that was, I think, pretty well said was this could be the year that Penn State and James Franklin overtake, Ohio State and Michigan in the Big Ten. And I think it was no different this year to say, well, Franklin's done a really good job, at Penn State recruiting, but he can't get over the hump. And I feel like we said that about Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. He couldn't beat Ohio State. And now Penn State's going to go 9-2, 10-2, and he did it again this year with arguably the best defense in college football. So I don't know what you guys' thoughts were. I was at the Penn State-Michigan game, and I could hear the fans that were saying, we want James Franklin out. And it's like, all right, well, if you get him out, they're going 10-2 every year. Who else are you going to bring in? So I think for me, the storyline in the Big Ten coming in was I thought Penn State and C-Bus, I had Penn State early in the year beaten Ohio State when I did my preseason ranking. So nothing new for James Franklin.
Worst game day coach in America. Big game coach. James Franklin shrivels up worse than any other head coach in college football, as far as I'm concerned. They have the talent every year. They recruit well. Drew Allar, massive high school recruit in Northeast Ohio, absolutely slung the rock all over the place, shriveled up. They had no answer. They just, for whatever reason, they get into those big games, and Franklin either makes them play too tight or he plays so loose that they play with reckless abandon and they don't play within the structure of the game, and they take themselves out of the game accordingly. I don't know what Penn State does. It's tough to find somebody who's recruiting at the level that Franklin's recruiting, within Penn State. Maybe the expanded playoff gives them a little bit more wiggle room and gives them a chance to get hot at the right time. But this is year after year after year. We're told, look out for Penn State, and then they play the big boys in the conference, and it's the same song and dance, home or away, doesn't matter.
And they were just saying again, a lot of these Penn State kids are all going to come back again. They're bringing in another good recruiting class. So I feel like it's going to be the same thing. So okay, well, Penn State should be really good, but I think this year, they got to go. Are they at Ohio State next year?
No,
they would get the Buckeyes home. Yeah. But I think the 12-team playoff, I think it's going to make things a little bit easier for them. But I agree. I just don't know who you get if it's not James Franklin. Again, you can go 10-2 every year. It's okay for most teams, but he can't beat Michigan or Ohio State.
Yeah, but Rock, the other thing you got to think about is this is going to be the weakest Big Ten there's going to be for a while. So if you're not getting over the hump now, what's going to happen when USC, Oregon, all these big boys come in and, now the Big Ten just got even more difficult. So you're already saying that he struggles against the big boys, Ohio State, Michigan. Now you add USC, Oregon, some of these other Utah to the party. They're going to struggle. They're not the third best team anymore. Now they're fighting to be 6, 7, 8 because we're talking more one score games. And at some point you gotta decide where your program is going to be at. And Penn State's not happy where they're at. Well, then unfortunately, you got to start looking.
Well, and I think too with the Big Ten the way it is. I mean, I was looking at the schedules, for next year, and Sebus, I think Ohio State's got a good schedule next year. Going into that new Big Ten, I was looking this morning at Michigan. Michigan's going to play Texas next year. They're going to play Oregon. They're going to play USC, Ohio State. I don't think they play Penn State. So they're going to play like 4 or 5 teams right out of the gate. But I'll say this.
So they're going to finally have games instead of playing the week?
They are. They are. But I think it's like college basketball, Medicius. I think it's like when everybody breaks my balls on Gonzaga saying they don't play anybody. But next year, you could have a team in the Big Ten with 2 or 3 losses and have a potential chance still to make the playoffs at 9-3 because it's going to be so brutal. And as a Gonzaga fan, I'll take Gonzaga losing 5 or 6 games against good teams because then they go play a cake schedule in the WCC. So the teams I feel sorry for are going to be your Minnesotas, your lower tier Big Ten teams who, when it was Big Ten East, Big Ten West, they had a chance to win that crappy Big Ten West and then go get pummeled in the Big Ten championship game. Those teams now are going to be at the bottom of the barrel, looking up at all these other Big Ten teams.
Yeah, I thought that's the biggest loser of the whole Big Ten expansion is Purdue, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Iowa, teams that had a shot to play for the Big Ten title as an 8-4 team, a 9-3 team beating up on, the other side. Now, I mean, it's just not happening anymore.
But with Franklin, he'd still lost to those teams only by 8 points, 9 points, I believe, within 10 points. I mean, they are right there. I mean, the ball could bounce the other way. He could have a big play here and there. And yes, I think some of his calls going for 2, going for a 4th down.
But he's been
definitely.
But Jake there for years though.
Yeah, but we've also seen coaches come in and go completely opposite though too. I guess for me, I'd be almost on the doorstep knocking in to get a bounce here and there. Then, who else do you have out there?
Well, I think that's my question is with all these coaches that are getting recycled, even in the NFL, you see the same guys getting the same jobs. I like what the Texans and getting DeMeco Ryans, a guy that hasn't been a head coach. Like, who do you get? Like, I thought Bill O'Brien did a really good job keeping Penn State alive. Some people were even saying maybe Manny Diaz takes over for Franklin. But again, I think some of the people at Penn State are happy going 10-2. They're in a New Year's Six bowl game against Ole Miss. They're just, the ball can bounce your way. But C-Bus, as you're saying, it seems to be that way every year. And there were some calls in the Michigan game against Penn State that I was at. Everybody in the stands was like, what is he doing? Just punt the football. Punt the football. And it's just some of those game time decisions. I never buy into James Franklin.
Yeah. He just seems to shrink in the big moment. I agree with you, Jake. Like you look at the scoreboard, you even look at some of the game flow, and it looks like they're right there. But then, but again, it's like, how many times are you be right there before you say you can't knock the door down? You're not the guy. Then we got to bring somebody to kick this door in, right? And that's where my headspace has been with him. And it's a constant revolving, to me, it's a constant revolving door. And look, like I gotta, I have Saunders, wide receiver, punt returner, and a receiver, punt returner. I want him to succeed. I just don't see it on the field. I just don't see it.
But isn't this what happened with Michigan a couple of years ago? Like they were knocking on the door, they couldn't get by Ohio State. I mean, Rock was on the radio show saying, fire Jim Harbaugh. He can't win the big one. And they stuck with him. I mean, he even took less money to stay there. He took a pay cut to prove himself. And then he gets over the hump. And now you're thinking to yourself, Rock, 3 years ago, you were saying, hey, get rid of this bum. Now you want to build a statue of him. So to Jake's point, I mean, if you're knocking on the door, I mean, I just go back to the Syracuse situation. Years ago, Syracuse was a good program. Paul Pasqualoni had him at 8-4 and 9-3, and that wasn't good enough for people. They bring in Greg Robinson from USC, and the whole thing turns into a Division III program. It's taken 20 years to be relevant. They're still not there yet. So, I mean, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd also say this is that, again, I think that, you look at Penn State offense, defense, the last so many years, defense has been lights out. I still think, I was just doing some stuff for stats tonight for the show, and I think Penn State still has the number one total defense in the country. But what I don't understand is you had a guy like Joe Moorhead years ago that took that offense, and I think that's the last time Penn State offensively was relevant. Why can't they find a good offensive coordinator? Even if you get a coordinator now for a couple of years, you got this young talent at quarterback, Drew Aller, who supposedly is going to be an NFL kid in a couple of years. I just wonder why they can't bring in a good offensive coordinator that's going to stay there for a couple of years. And how much say does James Franklin have with the offense? I would still think the head coaches have some say in the type of offense they're going to run. Personnel-wise, I would assume that the head coach has the final say in who he wants. I just wonder why they can't get a coordinator to stay.
Yeah, I mean, to me, you can only have, right? I mean, look at them offensively. They have not been an offensive juggernaut in years, right? I mean, they've had guys, Hamler, they had Saquon, but all along, it does seem like they're the school that you get the 3 starter that hangs around. And it's kind of Sean Clifford was kind of the same quarterback the minute he kind of the same quarterback. I don't see development there, I guess is maybe my point.
Well, it really comes down to the offensive coordinator. I mean, they were averaging, I want to say, over 30 points a game, and it's just the 2 games that they struggle with, Ohio State and Michigan. So I mean, I know they're playing the Marylands, the Indianas, the Rutgers that can inflate your stats, but it really comes down to those 2 games, that everyone sees with the offensive coordinator. Where the other games, I mean, they were putting up over 30 points a game easily.
So, Jake, I'm going to flip the script on you because I had a couple other storylines, before the year that I want to just share with you guys. And if you guys have anything, we can chat about it. So, Clemson's won the last 7 out of 8 years the ACC. Dabo refused to use the portal. He brought in Garrett Riley. They made the college football playoffs from 2015 to 21, 2 national championships. And this was going to be the first year the take was, could Florida State, which obviously we know how they ended up, and we'll talk about that here once we get into the games. But are things going to change with Dabo? Because I keep hearing that when Saban goes, Dabo Swinney's name's going to get mentioned. I still think Lane Kiffin, that's his job to lose if Nick Saban retires anytime soon. But what were your thoughts with Clemson, Dabo? Is he going to dive into the portal? I haven't heard anything on them with the portal.
I've read some things. They brought some more receivers in. He still is a big believer of building his culture from the ground up with starting building those freshmen, getting them to come in and play. He's almost kind of dying on the cross with that, with saying that over and over. But bringing in the coordinator, you definitely saw some improvements this year. Definitely was. Went some 2 good tailbacks that we had that it was a little bit more frustrating that we couldn't run the ball a little bit more. But I mean, they're right there. It's hard because when you come off 2 pro quarterbacks, Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence, and then you get, DJ and these other guys that are not living up to the factor of playing in their shadow. It's definitely tough. I wish that he would go more and be more vocal about it, but he feels that's the way he built his program from the ground up, and he's going to stick to it. And with the Alabama thing, I think every year it gets closer. I want to say that money keeps going up too for Alabama to buy him out from Clemson.
So one thing I'll say is I just had to look here as I'm losing another bowl game is West Virginia's 4th-string quarterbacks beating North Carolina's 8th-string quarterback. Clemson is 8-4, and they'll play Friday, December 29th against 7-5 Kentucky in the Gator Bowl.
Yeah.
That's a long ways from where they were, about 3-4 years ago?
No question. I mean, Duke was an upcoming team that was, high flying. That Florida State game, if the kicker makes the field goal, that's a possible win there. Losing to Miami definitely hurt at the end, and then even NC State. But you can definitely tell that they have talent there. They've beaten the Notre Dame team, South Carolina, North Carolina, and stuff like that. So you can see it's there. It's just they need more depth, I believe. You also don't have the monsters up front either with the D-line that had almost, I think, 6 of them at that one point while we're in the NFL right now playing.
C-Bus, how's the audio? Did you get it fixed?
I hope so. We're going to give it a shot. You guys hear me any better? Or is it still cutting out?
No, so far so good. You're a little in and out, but I hear you a little bit better. So I was telling Jake, Clemson's playing December 29th against 7-5 Kentucky. And we're 3-4 years away from, Clemson winning a national championship. Things have went south down there the last few years for Dabo.
Yeah, I think the jury's. I think the college kids are. I think they're seeing through a little bit of how much of Dabo's message they truly believe anymore, or don't. Right? I mean, I think obviously you can't dispute what he's done on the field. 2 chips in modern college football, especially in the last 10 years, is nothing that you can just dismiss. Right? But it does seem to me that those kids don't seem to be bought in as maybe I was in them even 5 years ago. I think NIL has a lot to do with it. Him kind of sticking is something that you are going to be able to consistently get away with in this modern day and be successful as far as I'm concerned. They played better down the stretch, which I thought was a testament to him. It's like that season was getting ready to really get away from them. Like he steered the ship, but there's just something about him to me that screams he's not connecting any current athlete. And I think they're going to be relevant. They play there's nobody left in the ACC, as far as I'm concerned, that's really much a major threat anymore to them. But I sure as heck don't necessarily view them as where we viewed them even 3-4 years. They definitely feel like top 10 program anymore.
So Medicis, I'm going to throw this at you here because C-Bus mentions NIL money. And every night on Twitter, I've been living on Twitter just about every night now. And all I see is Syracuse is getting this 4-star, this 5-star. They get McCord from Ohio State. So my question is this. C-Bus, all I heard was Ryan Day wouldn't guarantee McCord the starting job, and they wouldn't give him any more NIL money. So instead of McCord saying, you know what, I'm going to battle for the starting job no matter who the hell you bring in. You mean to tell me Syracuse has got more NIL money to give them than Ohio State? Where the hell is Syracuse getting all this money from? Why couldn't they get it years ago? I don't get it. They're getting all these people from A&M, Georgia. It's like where are they getting the money from?
Well, I think people in this area are buying into what Fran Brown's doing. I mean, he's one of the best recruiters in the country. Brought with him
two of the other best recruiters.
Some other really good recruiters, and they're bringing guys that they built relationships in and have them follow them to Syracuse. I think you have a lot of people in Syracuse that are hungry for a winner. If that means throwing some money around and adding to the NIL, I think it's necessary to compete. I think it's nowhere near everybody else, but it's a start. But the one thing I will say, there's a lot of excitement for the first time around Syracuse football, and it hasn't been like this in years. So, I'm bought into the Fran Brown era right now. I'm excited to see what happens. I just hope that it lasts more than a year, all this hype, and it doesn't die down quick when they get their butts kicked right away in year one. I hope he's able to compete. And, he brings in all these guys. He's got McCord. He brought in 2 receivers from Georgia. He's bringing in another one. In the last 20 minutes, Deuce Chestnut just said he's transferring from LSU, and there's rumors he's coming back to Syracuse. So, he's definitely bringing some talent to Syracuse. All Syracuse's best players that were all going to leave are all now coming back. So, and then you're talking about, what happens with Florida State, how quick can they get out of the ACC? Things might open up here for Syracuse to slip up and become one of the better teams in a forgotten about conference.
Yeah, every day I turn on Twitter, I see all these names coming, and I'm like, I was looking at Syracuse's schedule, and I said, Syracuse can win 9 or 10 games and find himself in the playoff year one with this guy. They don't play anybody next year.
Well, the thing was this year, if they had a quarterback, they were in a position where they could have won 8 or 9 games this year. They ran the last 4 or 5 games with Villari, who's a tight end. Couldn't hack it at Michigan as a quarterback, so now you're going to be a tight end at Syracuse, and you're going to be the number one option at quarterback the last 4 or 5 games. That's how bad of a situation it is. So we'll see.
I just was like, where are they getting? I read something that they're doing something with the broadcasting school.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're guaranteeing guys jobs or hooking them up when they get out of college or whatever it might be. But I'm just like, where are these guys? What's the pitch to come to Syracuse? Like, where's the money? Is Boeheim giving these guys money?
Is this like Coach Prime that, hey, we'll find the money. You just come here. We'll give you $6 million. We don't have it yet, but we'll get it.
Hey, we'll get it. It'll get here eventually.
Did you guys have any other?
The true test. The true test will be.
Go ahead, C-Bus.
I would say the true test is going to be when they, do these kids stay the second year? They're going to come in the first year. Do they stay the second year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. But hey, you know what? Nowadays with the portal, guys are coming in for a year. If they have a good year, they're gone, or we'll see. I think it'll be good for Cuse. Did you guys have any other storylines coming into the year?
How about the Northwestern job? What happened in the beginning, and then they actually end up winning a bowl game, which is pretty impressive. That coach helped keep that ship afloat.
Yeah, I had them as one of my, big surprises. Everybody talked about Dion and the job he did going, they won 1 game to 4 games. Northwestern won 1 game, and this year they went, 8-4? And
Yeah.
they just won that bowl game. That coach got the job, which I thought was fantastic. But I wanted to start disappointed teams, this year. And obviously the first one for me that stands out is USC. I had USC. I know. I had USC, Texas, Michigan, Georgia. Statman had all 4. Right. So Statman got the 14 playoff right, which I want to give him another shout out. But something is spiraling downhill for Lincoln Riley. And I'm looking here, they're down 7-0 right now. But what happened to USC?
Defense is optional. That's what happened. This isn't the Big 12 anymore. You can't outscore everyone 56-49 and expect to win and be a top program. You gotta play some defense. And until they do that, USC is going to be right where they are right now. They're going to beat the teams they should, but they're not beating the good teams. You got to play some defense.
There's people that are talking right now.
Yeah,
I think
I would
Sebus is
agree.
on a delay.
I
Go
mean,
ahead,
if you look
Sebus.
at if you look at Lincoln Riley, right? I mean, his deficiency at Oklahoma towards the end was they couldn't stop anybody on defense. And to me, I feel like he took and has made the same exact mistake going back to USC or going to USC, and defense again is optional. Alex Grinch was an absolute terrible hire. I knew that from him being here at Ohio State. And the fact that that guy landed another gig was insane to begin with, let alone how long he was able to maintain that gig was just an indictment to me on what the hell is Riley doing there.
I think he's going to look at, and I keep seeing this on Twitter too, but I keep hearing that he may listen if there's any NFL jobs, which we know there's going to be at least 6 or 7. If there's any NFL jobs, even as a coordinator, that he may look for a way out of USC. I'm just looking at the score now. They're losing right now to Louisville. If they lose tonight, they're 7-6 on a team that started off the year. They were preseason number 6. You know, Caleb Williams, all the talk coming back, which, you know, you could look at his numbers. I think next year them going to the Big Ten, if you would have told me, I would say that I think they struggle and I think they get beat up next year in the Big Ten because I don't think they're going to be able to handle the physicality of at Ohio State, at Penn State, or even in Michigan. There's a legit shot that he could be out of there after year 3, and they paid him all that money.
Yeah.
You know, all that money to come there, and now you're seeing all these players that are transferring out there. I think tonight they're starting a 3rd-string quarterback, and he's got nobody out of the portal yet to come there. So he hasn't done anything right now to make them any better next year than what they were this year.
And I'm interested to see what they do at quarterback next year, too. I mean, they're living off Caleb Williams right now. What happens? I mean, clearly, you know, you go away from him, they're struggling right now. But what happens life after Caleb Williams? Do they have? I mean, I'm not too familiar with what they have coming in next year, but I mean, he covered up a lot of the deficiencies they already had, and they can't stop anybody. You know, and now you're talking about arguably the number 1 pick. You know, you lose him. Now the defense stinks and the offense is average. Now, like you said, you're a 500 team in the Big Ten.
I feel like USC those never had. I'm trying to go back to like the Pete Carroll days when they were winning national championships with Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush. I can't remember if Pete Carroll's teams defensively, they had to be better than what Lincoln Riley's teams were. But I feel like USC's never really been great.
What's that?
Ray Malaluga. I mean, you had some guys. Ray Malaluga. You had some guys there at USC that could play back then.
Yeah, they were giving up 28 instead of 48.
Yeah, I just feel like USC's always struggled. I'm just really surprised because I thought with Caleb Williams back, I didn't think they had to be great defensively, Jake. I just said if they can be average, they're going to outscore teams.
Yeah, I feel like you almost have the Colts mindset when they had Peyton Manning. It's like, all right, we'll just get edge rushers, and we're hoping to get a big lead where a team has to throw it, and we can play with those guys. You know, the hard part is when a team just runs it down your throat, like Washington. It's just, I think they had more rushing yards and passing yards, even with their guy had a 250 with the running back. That's hard to win games with the other teams out rushing you that much and having ball control and everything. But the thing he always has is how many Heisman Trophy winners does he have as a quarterback? So that's always enticing for guys to go out there that, hey, look at all the players that are being successful in the NFL, that he always has that in his back pocket. I think he'll land another guy, but the question is going to be is, you know, he's got to get that other side of the ball fixed.
So, guys, I had North Carolina. I was really disappointed. Again, another year with Drake May, the Mac Brown. They started off 6-0. You know, they lost to Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech by double digits where they were favored by double digits. And then they lost to Clemson and NC State, and this was the 2nd year in a row they've been in that Mayo Bowl. And I'm just looking, they're down 30-10 in the 4th quarter. Now, again, it's with their 15th-string quarterback, you know, playing in that game. But I feel like Mac Brown the last 2 years, and I love Mac Brown. I thought he got a raw deal at Texas. I don't think he should have went out of Texas the way he did. but now it looks good because Steve Sarkisian's in the playoff. But I feel like North Carolina, since he's been there, they've had two or three really good recruiting classes where they were supposed to be really good. They started off good, and then boom, they can't finish games late in the year. To me, they were a huge disappointment.
Especially with May, they started off 6-0. I think they were up almost 11th in the country or so, or if not top 10.
Yep.
I mean, just losing to Virginia, Georgia Tech, and teams like that just, and they got their number one receiver back too from the NCAA gave him approval, so that only helped Drake May, and it just wasn't the same kid.
No defense whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean they've struggled defensively the last 2 or 3 years. I mean they got Gene Chizik as the defensive coordinator.
Gene.
So we'll see what they do next year. The other one I was disappointed with, guys. I didn't put it on my notes, but I had it at home. I was really disappointed to see Bus on Wisconsin and Luke Fickell. I really thought that, I know it's his first year. I still think he'll be okay there because he's a good recruiter. I just expected more out of them this year. They really struggled down the stretch there.
Absolutely. I thought that was definitely a problem for them. No quarterback, Rock. I mean, they didn't have anybody that, I know they had an injury at quarterback, but they didn't have anybody that could actually spin it. I think he'll get there. He brought in Kenny Guyton, I read today, the coach wide receivers, former Ohio State quarterback, beloved here in CBUS. So I think he'll, they'll give him time. I think he'll be able to establish the culture that he wants. The other, I don't know if you mentioned it, I've been going in and out of audio stuff, but hopefully this is a little bit better. Florida, I thought, was a huge disappointment this year. Again, I don't know. I mean, Florida State, obviously, I'm sure we'll talk about them a little bit later, but I look at Miami and Florida both and go, what the heck is going on in the state of Florida? I mean, Billy Napier, they couldn't even get to 500. I mean, they're awful. They're awful. I mean, they're.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened down there because
it's a bad football.
Right. When he got that job, I thought it was a great hire. I thought it was a home run hire for Florida. I thought he would have done a lot better. And I was looking at the schedule for next year. Their schedule next year is brutal. So I don't think he survives. I wouldn't be surprised if they cut him loose, but I'm really surprised. I thought they would have been a lot better. Guys, I'm going to jump ahead. I want to get your guys' thoughts before we get into the two semifinal games and predictions. But we talked a little bit about the committee through text message and then all that in the group chat. But I'll go around the horn with you guys. And did the committee get it right? And I think you can make a lot of arguments for 1 through 7. There's no argument for Cody's Oregon team. They got beat, 2 losses, they're out. But really, for any of the top 7, Florida State, Georgia, and Ohio State with 1 loss, you could have argued for any of those teams to get into the playoff. What were your guys' thoughts? Did the committee get it right with the 4?
Yeah, I think the committee got it right. I mean, that's why you put a committee together and not just have a computer do it. That Florida State fortunately lost their starting quarterback, and they had 2 games to kind of prove themselves that, hey, that we're okay, but they struggled in those 2 games offensively. Yeah, their defense was, locked down, shut everyone off, but for the most part, they weren't the same type of offense, same type of team, and that's why you put a committee together to put the best teams in there. And I think they got it right with Alabama beating Georgia, and Texas in there, and that's my thought.
Medicis, what do you think? They get it right?
I mean, why play the games if it doesn't matter if you go undefeated? I mean, I could argue Florida State deserved to be in there, regardless of whether they had a 7-string quarterback. They went undefeated, won a Power 5 conference. Had some big wins over LSU, Clemson early on. I mean, they did what they were supposed to. They beat everyone.
Say that Liberty should be in 13-0 from your Chanticleer.
But Liberty's not a Power 5 conference. That's not the ACC. If this was Clemson 2-3 years ago, I mean, you'd be saying the exact same thing, regardless of what league they play in.
Well, they've already shown it once with Penn State, with Ohio State getting over Penn State. Remember, Penn State won their conference. Ohio State's in at home, but they got to go in.
I'm just saying, what's the point of playing the games and going undefeated if you don't have a shot? As a Power 5 conference team, regardless of what you think about the ACC being down or not, I can make the argument about Florida State. And then, I was the one on the pre-show that said I think Georgia should have got in. Regardless of what happened, you're talking about the two-time defending national champs, 27-game win streak, and they have one loss. And because they lose in the conference championship as opposed to losing in week 2, that is, I guess, all of a sudden, that hurts them more. I mean, I think it's ridiculous that you can go undefeated, you play for your conference title, you get upset by 3 on a neutral ground, and that's grounds for you from going from the number 1 team in the country down to number 5 or 6. That, to me, that's crazy. I think you've proven, for the last 2 years, you've been the best team in the country. You deserve a shot to defend. So, again, did they get it right? You can argue that they got it right, but you can make arguments for those other 2 that they 100% got it wrong.
Yeah, I would agree. And it's funny that we would say if Alabama doesn't pull out a miracle against Auburn, we're not even talking about it because Florida State would be in.
Yep.
But I do agree with you, Nick.
I don't think they'd be.
I think Georgia would be in.
Georgia. That's absolutely. Is Georgia from 1 loses and you knock them all the way out, and then you can even talk C-Bus's Ohio State. They lose 1 game, the very last game of the year in a close game, and you're going to knock them out. So I think all those teams had arguments, but I still would have put Florida State in regardless if they played with a 5th-string quarterback, just because, again, undefeated, Power 5, they should have got in, but there was no way they were leaving an SEC team out. There's just no way it was going to happen.
So, Rock, the only thing I'll add there is, and Medicis, I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I think the difference is deserving versus best. And what you are saying about Florida State of that they deserve to be there, I don't disagree with that. But the committee's task is not to pick the most deserving team. It's to pick the 4 best teams. And I think all of us to each other would say Florida State is not, with the 3rd-string quarterback and the offense that they put on the field the last 2 games of the season, is not one of the 4 best teams in the country. And that is what the committee is tasked with, is to find the 4 best teams, not the 4 most deserving. And why we all want to pound our chest and say Florida State got hosed, I feel bad for all those kids. They did everything they possibly could to get into the playoff. But they are not, in my eyes, from what I saw, one of the 4 best teams in the country the way they are currently constructed. And that's just the reality of it.
Yeah, now I think it's too bad because the entire team basically opted out of this game, and they're going to play against Georgia with a 3rd-string quarterback and all these opt-out. They're going to get destroyed.
Oh,
yeah. Do you think it would have been different if the quarterback got hurt in the ACC championship game? They still won. You think it would have still been the same thing, or you think they would have gave?
I think if in that ACC championship game, even with their backup quarterback or the 3rd-string kid, I still think if they would have won by 2 or 3 touchdowns, I think they would have put Florida State in.
Well, you also got to remember that Florida State looked better than Michigan did when Michigan played Iowa in the Big Ten championship. They scored more points. They had more yards. Their offense looked better. Florida State's defense looked much better. I mean, Michigan came out and played flat as can be. I wouldn't say they looked overly impressive. So if we're just basing it off 1 game, I mean, granted, Michigan, arguably the best team in the country right now. But, I mean, yes, Florida State did not look good. But they played a Louisville team that was ranked higher than Iowa. They put up more yards than Iowa. He passed for more yards than J.J. McCarthy passed for. So, again, it's all subject. Like, I can find stats that prove that what they did was more impressive than Michigan. But
you can also argue that Washington, with their strength of schedule and the wins that they had, should be the number 1 team in the country.
But But also, Medices, what did Florida State look like against who we just talked about how bad Florida was the week before? They looked absolutely awful and laid it and looked and sleptwalked through that game as well, right? I mean, like this is still a body of work, right? Like
I'm not disagreeing, but you could say the same thing about Alabama. Looked terrible against a terrible Auburn team, and why is one win over Georgia? How does that knock Georgia? Out of the top four. Again, if we're saying the four best teams, I'd argue that Georgia's one of the four best teams.
Who are they better than in the top out of the other three teams? Because you're not going to put them in over Bama because they lost head to head. So
right, even
are
if
you
they
saying
played
that
10 times,
are they better
Georgia,
than Texas?
They're better than Texas, yes.
Okay.
Well, here and
you
I don't
take out
disagree with that, but here's what I would debate is say. So Georgia lost. Texas was a conference champ. Washington was a conference champ. Michigan was a conference champ. They weren't going to put them in over any of those other teams that were conference champs.
Agreed.
No way. But I wouldn't disagree with you to say, if Georgia played Michigan, Georgia would be favored. If Georgia played Washington, Georgia's probably favored. Georgia, Texas, Georgia's probably favored. But being that they didn't win their conference championship, there's no way they were putting them in.
Right.
How about with Florida State, with ACC voting down the playoff to go early? They could have been right in the playoffs, and they voted it down with their alliance. So I came back to bite them. Their conference hurt them.
Well, the good news is, guys, next year we'll be debating on teams 13 and 14 that don't get in. So I look forward to that.
I think it's going to come down to seedings next year. We'll be fighting over, who gets the 7th, who has the 9th, who has to go play who.
So you guys, the first semifinal game. So you got Michigan, Bama. We'll give our predictions at the end. I got about 10 games we'll go through at the end that we'll pick, coming up. But I just want to hear, maybe what you guys think some keys of the game is. I think for me, it's going to be, I think it's pretty loud and clear. Is Michigan hasn't seen a Jalen Milroe all year. Can they contain him? One of the things I was looking at, Alabama's 48th in rushing offense. Their offensive line has given up 118 sacks on the year. So I think for me, it's going to be, can Michigan contain Jalen Milroe? Because they're not going to line up. I mean, physicality, they're not going to be able to do what they did against Penn State and run the ball 46 times and think they're going to beat Alabama. So what they do against Jalen Milroe, because I don't think all year, other than the Maryland game against Tua, they've seen a quarterback that can beat you on the ground. But again, I'll say this to you guys. He was benched in week 2? And then they get a miracle play in a rivalry game against Auburn, which it's a rivalry game. I get it. So we wouldn't even be talking about Alabama. And nobody, I've looked on every site to get picks. There's not many people giving Michigan a chance to beat Alabama in this game.
Yeah, my two things to look for, I think it's going to come down to quarterback play. I think they're going to have defenses are going to play good defenses. Who's going to be able to throw the ball down the field? Who's going to be able to make those third and medium plays and keep the chains moving, and keep the other defense on the field to wear them down. And, we've seen both quarterbacks can run the ball, but both quarterbacks at times struggle throwing the ball at times. So I think it's going to come down to who's going to be more consistent and, hitting the basic plays of the 3rd and 7 to keep the chains moving, even getting them into field goal range instead of punting.
So does anybody think, or is it just me, is that what scares me a little bit about Alabama is, they're ranked 48th in rushing offense. They're towards the bottom in passing offense, in the country. It's not really a star-studded Alabama team that they've had in the past, but they're probably one of the hottest teams, coming into the playoff of any team out there. I'm a little worried at the fact that I don't think it's one of Nick Saban's better Alabama teams, but I think it's one of the better coaching jobs that he's done at Alabama in the last so many years. So So I'll be interested to see the game plan for Michigan. Jake, I think you're 100% right. I'll go on a limb and just argue the fact that I think Michigan's got by all year because they haven't had to do anything. J.J. McCarthy hasn't had to throw the ball 30, 40 times to beat you. That's just not how they're built. So if they're behind and they ask him to throw it 40 times, in that game, I don't like their chances. But they've adapted every week to what they're going to do best. I don't think they're going to line up and just pound the football against Alabama. But Alabama struggles to stop the run. Auburn rushed for over 255 yards against Alabama in that rivalry game. So we'll see. But I think it's going to be one up front and what quarterback can make a play.
But then again, that same Alabama front held Georgia to 75 yards on the ground in the SEC championship game, right? So tough to figure out. My two keys, at least for this game, Rock, is one. I know everybody's worried about Milroe and his legs, but he has, I think, 40 completions of 25 yards or more. He's a big play, big chunk quarterback through the air. So Michigan has to shut that down. And then I think a key for Michigan is, the stat that I read that jumped off the page to me is I think they forced a turnover on almost 17% of their defensive possessions throughout the year, second in the country. If they're able to get a couple short fields and stay and keep the pressure on Bama and stay in front or within close to where they can stay within their game plan, I most certainly think Michigan has, greater than a 50% chance to lock that up. And I also read 3 different publications that pick Michigan to win. So I'll forward you those links too.
All right, good.
I'm going to jump in on that because Sebas, I had 2 key stats going into this game. Michigan's plus 17 turnover differential to Alabama's plus 8. I mean, if you can, hold on to the ball and again, protecting the quarterback, Alabama 43 sacks given up, Michigan 18. I mean, if Michigan can stay out of 3rd and long and continue to play to their strengths, or, if Alabama gets behind the chains and has to start throwing the ball, that's where bad things happen. Like you said, once you get the short field against Michigan, it turns into points. That's where you get into trouble. And Rock, you said it before, I don't think either team's built to play from behind and throw the ball a ton. So I think the team that protects the ball and protects the quarterback wins the game.
Yeah, I read an interesting stat too that Jalen Milroe on drop back passes, he's been pressured 40% of the time. So that O-line is not a strong offensive line. And I think Michigan's front, their D-line, if they can get to them. But again, I would think that Michigan's going to have to play a spy on Milroe, but I'm excited to see what that game plan is going to be. So we'll see what happens in that. We'll pick it at the end, guys. Washington, Texas. I think this is the better game because I still don't have a pick because I have went back and I don't want to see Texas, Alabama for the second time. I love Steve Sarkisian. I'm happy for him. I really like Kellen DeBoer and what he's done at Washington. I think they're an undefeated team that's flying under the radar, that they're winning these close games late. They're making the plays late. They're really good. And Texas's front, I was reading this stat the other day. Texas held Kansas State and Oklahoma State, which are 2 of the top rushing teams in the country, combined 61 rushing yards, which I thought was a really good stat. And we'll have to see how many times. Penix has not gotten sacked much, 18 times. And I believe Washington just won the Joe Moore Award for the best offensive line in the country. So we'll see how well that O-line can protect them.
Yeah, I think if you would have asked me before watching that Washington-Oregon game, I probably would lean Texas just based on the fact that, we didn't really think that Washington was that physical team, but the way they played Oregon, especially in that first half, was just so impressive. And I think it's just the fact that they play so late and they're not really, you don't get to see them all the time where, the Big Ten, the SEC is on all the time where Pac-12, they're playing those late games. You miss a lot of them. But, I was really impressed with Washington in that win over Oregon. been hearing for weeks from Cody, who talked about how great Oregon was and how Oregon was going to win the rematch by 3 touchdowns. And just to come out and throw that first punch against Oregon and be the more physical team in the first half was impressive. So, I'm with you, though. I really like this matchup. I think this is the more exciting game, and it really could go either way.
Yeah, and I think that Texas defense is 4th in the country in stopping the run, and Washington doesn't run the ball very well. But I think it's going to be interesting to see. Again, Penix has only been sacked 18 times in 26 games. So how well can that big offensive line protect? Because defensively, Texas up front, that's an NFL front up front for Texas.
Oh, Murphy and Sweat up the middle are formidable, to say the least. Yeah, that's one of my keys, Rock, is really that front four, for sure. I agree.
Yeah, I definitely think out of the 2 games, I mean, the first game you have the two big brands, but the second game, I think we could see a really high scoring game, or we may see a game that's 17-14, 20-17. Maybe Michael Penix with a late heroic drive that he's done all season. So, guys, let's get to some of these picks because I got a lot of them. I think it'll be fun to see who you guys have in some of these games. And again, I'm looking right now, and USC scored at 7-7 in that game. The Pop-Tart Bowl. It's a new bowl game this year. 9-3 NC State, 8-4 Kansas State. Kansas State's -2.5. Jake, I'll start with you. Who wins the Pop-Tart Bowl?
I'm going to go NC State. With Kansas State, I think Howard's in the transfer portal. I'm not sure where he might even be somewhere else, but, losing their high-power quarterback that probably led that team, I'm going to go with NC State.
Medesis?
It's so tough to pick these games because everybody's sitting out or in the portal already. But I'm going the same. I'm going NC State.
C-Bus, who you like?
Yeah, I would agree. I typically would say Kansas State's lost their quarterback, so I'd go NC State. But I'm going to go default to conference here. I think the Big 12 is better than the ACC. So give me Kansas State.
Well, I keep hearing that there's a chance Will Howard could end up a Buckeye, C-Bus. I don't know how true that is. I keep hearing that on social media. But I'm going to go with NC State. I love Dave Dorn. I think he's done a fantastic job at NC State. And I'm still surprised a little bit when some of these big jobs come up, why his name doesn't come up. I think he likes where he's at. I think NC State – I haven't heard anything on NC State, so that's the only reason why I'm going to go NC State because I don't know if anybody's transferred. But I'll go with them in the Pop-Tart Bowl. All right, the other one we have – let me pull it up here. This, I think, should be a good game. I think Dylan Gabriel or Oklahoma's quarterback has transferred out. Why there's two transfers going to Oregon, 2 stud quarterbacks would transfer to the same place is beyond me. But you got 14th ranked Arizona against Oklahoma that's 10-2. Oklahoma's +3. I'll start and go the other way. C-Bus, who you like?
Man, Arizona's been a blast to watch all year. They've been my surprise team the whole year. I don't know when the last time I've said Arizona and ranked late in the season. I think Oklahoma with Gabriel transferring, I think they're probably got their mind on 2024 season already. So give me Arizona.
Medesis, who you like?
Yeah, same reason. Arizona. I mean, you lose your quarterback, it's a game changer. I don't care if you got a month to prepare. Arizona.
Jake, who you got?
The thing is, I think Arizona got hot at the right time. And I'm going to go on the limb. I'm going to go Oklahoma. I just think, they're going to throw something different at Arizona, maybe play maybe more physical up front or so. But, and also the head coach there is a former DC of Clemson, so I'm going to go with him.
Well, I'm going to go the other way because Jed Fish is a former Michigan assistant. So Arizona was one of my surprise teams this year. I'm going to ride them. I think they'll be more motivated than Oklahoma. So I'm going to go Arizona. And I actually would take Arizona money line. I think they win outright. All right, Jake. I'm going to give you the pick on this one first. The Gator Bowl, 8-4 Clemson against 7-5 Kentucky. Kentucky's actually +4 in this one. Who you got?
Can't go against my team. They still got their quarterback and Klubnik, and I think they still got Moffitt as a running back. So I'm going to go with Clemson.
Medicis, who you got?
I'm going Kentucky. I was impressed with them against Louisville last game of the year, so I'll stick with it. Kentucky over Clemson.
How about you, C-Bus?
Man, two overrated conferences, the SEC and the ACC. What am I gonna do now? I'm gonna actually take Clemson. I think Dabo's I think Dabo's going to have a little bit of magic here. I think he knows that he's coaching for a recruiting class. I think he's going to let it all hang out, even though I love Mark Stoops, but give me Clemson.
Texas A&M Mark Stoops, I had it for 1 minute.
Yep.
I was just going to say, Mark Stoops got hosed because he should have been. But the same, you can go back to what, Greg Schiano?
Yep.
When Greg Schiano got what job was it?
Tennessee.
Was it the Tennessee job for what, a day? And then the booster said, hell no, we don't want him. And for that reason alone, I'm going Clemson. I think they ended the year playing better. I think Dabo finds a way. I think Kentucky's +4. I like Clemson by double digits in this game. I think they take it to Kentucky in this one. Just because I don't know who's playing for Kentucky. So
well, that's fair. Me neither.
All right, here this game should be a good one, even though Jake, your other guy, DJ's not playing for Oregon State, but the Sun Bowl's got Oregon State against Notre Dame. Notre Dame is -6. I think Sam Hartman's playing for Notre Dame.
No, I think last time I read something, he was focusing on the draft.
Is he? Okay, so I don't know if he's playing. Medicis, I'll start with you because I haven't started with you yet. Who you like in this one?
Nope. I just looked. Sam Hartman opts out. So, I was going to say Notre Dame just based on quarterback play, but at this point, it's a toss up. I'll stick with Notre Dame. I'll go Notre Dame with this one.
All right, C-Bus, who you got?
Man, two schools that nobody's playing. I think the running back for Notre Dame's out as well. I know Oregon State has a bunch of transfers here. I think Notre Dame's defense will travel. Oregon State started off the year pretty hot and then kind of faded towards the end. So give me Notre Dame.
Well, I'm going to take Notre Dame because DJ and the backup quarterback, who is going to Michigan State, so they'll be on their third string quarterback. I'm going to go with Notre Dame just because of that. Just because Oregon State will be down to their third string quarterback.
What about you, Jake?
Rock took it right out of my mouth. That's what I was going to say.
I'll jump in for him.
Yeah. Second that.
And then the Fiesta Bowl. I don't know if anybody's going to pick this. Is anybody going to pick 13-0 Liberty to beat Oregon?
I am.
Got the Chanticleer.
Of course you are.
Coach.
Oregon's -17. Bo Nix is playing in this game, which I think he's playing because he's probably saying I shouldn't get hurt against Liberty and we should destroy him. So he probably saying he can make another NFL case. So, Medicis, you're going Liberty to pull the upset?
It wasn't not so long ago that there was another Fiesta Bowl where an underrated team took it to a top 10 team in Oklahoma. So, I'm thinking Liberty's going to pull the Boise State, little Statue of Liberty, some sort of trick play, hook and ladder. I think Liberty. I think if I'm a betting man, I'm taking Liberty with the points. I'm taking Liberty to pull the upset.
Jake, how about you?
Oregon, Bo Nix pissed off about the Heisman losing. I think this is his way to try to bump up his NFL stock. So I could see him balling out this game.
C-Bus, you like the Ducks?
Absolutely. I'll take them to cover too.
Me too. I feel like this is where Medicis always has that crazy pick. He did this in the NFL with Buffalo. He said the Buffalo was going to win 2 out of 3 games against some of the big, and he seems to be always right about some of these. And in the past,
crazy. They should have went 3-0, but
so I don't know. I'm not going to pick it. I think Oregon hammers. This is one of the biggest lines of bowl season. I think they hammer Liberty. But who knows, right? You never know what's going to happen. So, but I am going to go Oregon in this one. Cody will be mad at you. All right, I don't know if anybody's going to pick Florida State. This line, Florida State's getting 17, similar to Liberty, with everybody opting out. Is anybody going to go Florida State on this one?
No.
Nope.
No.
C-Bus, you? Yeah, I'm not either, so I'm not even going to – we're not even going to waste our time on that one. Then you got the Music City Bowl, which I just read, Tua – his brother is going to see if he can get another year of eligibility and transfer out. So you got Maryland's getting 7 against 6 and 6 Auburn in the Music City Bowl. C-Bus, who you like in that game?
Yeah, give me Auburn too. I think they're a little angry after the Bama game. I think they'll find enough physicality here. But Maryland does play tough and physical, but without Tua's brother, I don't think they got much of a chance.
Jake, how about you?
Go on Auburn. They played well against Alabama. I think they're going to ride that. And especially if Tua doesn't play, I don't see Maryland having a shot.
Medicis, you going Maryland?
No, I'll go Auburn. Without the quarterback, it's Auburn's going to win the game.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I like Hugh Freeze. I would have loved to have seen him. He's been in some close games, this year. So I'll go Auburn in that game. And one of the more interesting games to me is I think the Peach Bowl with Ole Miss and Penn State. Penn State's -3.5 without Manny Diaz, but still the top defense in the country. We know Ole Miss with Kiffin is known for offense. He's bringing in a ton of guys from the portal for next year. Don't be surprised to see them in the playoff next year. Ole Miss, Penn State, Peach Bowl. Jake, who you got?
Oh, it's a tough one. This is offense versus defense. I'm going to lean towards offense. I'm going to go with Ole Miss. I think Lane's going to have some trickery up his sleeve. The tough part is with Penn State losing their defensive coordinator, you really don't know what type of defense that coach is going to be running. So that could be a little difficult for an offense. But I think, they have a little bit too much firepower on the offensive side. And you want to talk about quarterbacks transferring in. How about the Oklahoma State kid that transferred there and didn't play a lick and couldn't beat out Dart there? So
Who's coming back another year?
Yep.
Medicis, who you got?
Ole Miss by double digits. You know me, I'm not a Penn State guy. I don't live up to the hype of James Franklin. I just don't see it. And as a Syracuse fan, I can't stand Penn State to begin with. So Ole Miss, double digits, and I love it.
All right. C-Bus, who you got?
Yeah, I don't think Penn State can score enough to keep this close. I mean, we talked about it. I don't trust Franklin in big games to begin with. I think Ole Miss finds a way to score enough here to get it. They run out and hide away from Penn State. So give me Ole Miss.
Geez, we're all in agreement here. I like Ole Miss too. I can't go against Lane. Love Lane Kiffin. All right, C-Bus, I'm gonna give you the first pick here. The Cotton Bowl, Missouri and Ohio State. Ohio State's -1, and I just saw a thing today at practice, and Marvin Harrison looked like he was on the bike. So I'm guessing Marv's not playing.
No.
Who do you like? You like the Buckeyes?
Yeah, I'm gonna take Ohio State. I think they have enough of that junior class that's going to stick around and play here. We got Travion that's going to stay. I know we got Devin Brown breaking in a new quarterback, for the bowl game. I think Missouri is missing 2 of their top defensive players that are both out due to injury, not due to just sitting out for the draft. I think they will have them fired up, ready to go. Look out for Carnell Tate to have a good game come onto the scene. Another stud wide receiver that we'll hear more about next year.
Medicis,
how about you?
Missouri was my biggest surprise of the year. Finishing the year in the top 10. I thought an unbelievable job in the best conference in the country. So with that being said, I still think Ohio State wins the game. I think it's going to be a close game. I think talent-wise, Ohio State's just way too talented. But But again, Missouri comes in. This is one of the best years they've had in a long time. So they're going to be motivated to try to finish the year. So I think it's close, but I think Ohio State wins the game.
Jake?
So, Bus, you're telling me I'm going to have to watch the game and watch another Ohio State receiver have 20 catches in a bowl game and be all the hype of, Heisman the next year and everything? I'm actually going to go Missouri. I think they're doing pretty well. They got their quarterback, Cook, and he's had a pretty good year. And like Medisa said, coming off of 10 wins in the SEC, that's a pretty good conference out there. So I'm going to go Missouri.
Bus, you're not going to like me. I like Eli Drinkowitz. I think the job he's done this year. I think they got one of the best running backs in the country that not many people know about because when they play as well, I think they're going to be more motivated. Bus, is Ohio State motivated to play in this game?
If you would have asked me 3 weeks ago, Rock, I probably would have told you no. What I have read and what I have seen does appear that there is some thoughts of unfinished business within that junior class. Some more guys potentially sticking around that they thought were going to go to the league that isn't. I think that this is potentially their chance to start that momentum that they want to build into next year.
So I might have to switch my bull pick'em to Ohio State because I just said I don't think Ohio State's going to be motivated. I think Missouri is going to be fired up to play in this game. I didn't know if there were a lot of guys that opted out for Mizzou. And I keep reading, C-Bus, that a lot of these Ohio State guys want to come back next year because they got a foul taste in their mouth this year that if they all come back next year, Ohio State's going to be right there again next season.
They probably read the report where Harrison's going to get $20 to $25 million to come back to Ohio State.
What a joke that was.
That was hilarious.
All right, guys, we're on the semifinal game, so we'll start with the Rose Bowl first. Michigan, Alabama. Alabama right now, I had it at +2. I don't know if it changed today. They still have Alabama at +2. C-Bus, I'll start with you. Who you like?
Man, I've gone back and forth on this one, Rock. But I just think that I think Alabama is gettable this year. My worry is I haven't seen Michigan play from behind, which I think they're going to eventually have to do. With that being said, I can't take anybody that Harbaugh coaches. So give me Bama 20-17.
Medisa, who you got?
I got Michigan in a close one. I think turnovers are the difference. I just see Alabama more likely to turn the ball over, and I think I trust JJ a little bit more than Melrose. So I'm going Michigan close. But again, I could easily see it the other way. Alabama's as hot as anyone is in the country right now. But for whatever reason, I'm sticking with Michigan.
Jake, how about you?
Going Alabama. I'm interested to actually see with Harbaugh. He's missed 6 games this year, and he came back for that championship game. You would think they would light up that Iowa defense, even though they're pretty good. But close game there. I'm going to take Nick Saban, and I think Melrose is going to have some big plays down there. And I'm not sure how well Michigan can play from behind. I don't know if they've been tested all year or can handle the pressure of that. And just like last year, they got down with TCU, and it could be, here we go again. So I'm going to go Alabama.
Well, I can't pick Alabama. I can't pick against Michigan. I hate Alabama and I hate Georgia. So whoever was playing in this game, I probably would root for those teams to win this game. But I don't have it on tonight, but I'm waiting for my Michigan versus everybody sweatshirt that I ordered the other day to put on. I think it's going to be a really
from Ohio State, by the way. Congratulations for
I think it's going to be a really good game. But one thing I said this all year, and I got to stand by my guns. I said Michigan was the best all-around team in the country, and I think they'll find another way again to win this game. And I think it'll be a really good game. I think it'll be the closest game of the two. I think the other one's going to be a high-scoring game. I think this one's going to be a lower-scoring game. But I think this one will be close. I'm going to go with Michigan. I'm on what Medisa said. I think Michigan gets a turnover late. I think they find a way to contain Jalen Milroe a little bit. I think McCarthy makes just enough plays down the stretch. I still like McCarthy to Colston Loveland, the tight end, late in this game. So I'm gonna go Michigan. All right, guys. Semifinal number 2. This one, I'm honest to God, I got to tell you guys, I have not picked this game yet. This is like a flip the coin and whatever it lands. And right now, Texas is minus 4.5 in this game. So, Jake, I'll start with you, and we'll go down. Who you like?
I got the feeling Washington. I think they're hot right now. They've won a couple games running the ball and throwing, and they've been battle tested. Playing a good conference. I think this one's gonna be a close game, and I can see it being right in the middle. Like a couple of teams, both teams score quickly, and then the defenses get settled in. I could see this being Washington 28, Texas 24.
Medicis, who you got?
See, I think it's going to be the other way. I think it's going to be a shootout. I don't know. There's something about Michael Penix Jr. that's just the guy wins. That's all he does is win. So I got Washington in a shootout.
C-Bus, who you got?
Man, I feel like you, Rock. I've struggled to pick this one as well. I don't trust Texas's secondary, but I do love Texas's front four up front on defense. I think Washington's a team of destiny. I'm going to quit hemming and hawing here. Give me Washington 38, Texas 35 on a late interception by Quinn Ewers to seal it for Washington.
So I will tell you guys, I was just pulling up the bull pick'em, and not that it's going to matter because I think you're kind of on the bottom here. I don't think we're going to catch my brother-in-law, but
No.
I picked Texas. But the more I'm thinking about this is Medicis hit it on the spot, man. Penix has just found a way to win games, in the fourth quarter. It just seems like the ball's always in his hands. He makes the right decisions. Washington can't run the ball well. Texas is really good against the run. But I'm not sold, C-Bus. You just said the secondary for Texas. They're not very good against the pass. And I think Washington's got a lot of skilled guys on the outside. So I'm going to switch my pick. I think you're going to see the 2 unbeaten teams play for the national championship. Michigan, Washington. I think they'll both go to 14-0, and I think that should be a really good game the following week. So I'll let you guys end with this. So I have Michigan, Washington. Obviously, you guys know where I'm going to go with it. Jake, you had Alabama and
Washington.
Who would you have winning the national championship?
I'm going to go with Washington. I think they got a little magic going out with the Pac-12, saying goodbye to it with the national championship while they go to a different conference. And they had something magical. Like you said, they were finding ways to win. And I think Alabama's going to get a little bit beat up playing Michigan a little bit. And I think Washington will get them in the passing game.
C-Bus, you had Bama, Washington. Who you got?
Man, I'm rooting for Washington, but I'm gonna take the crafty old ball coach and Nick Saban finds a way to get another one. As much as I don't want to see it, but I that's where I'm gonna go.
And Medicis, you have what? Michigan, Washington?
Yeah.
Are you riding Penix?
You know what happened November 7th, 2020, Rock?
November 7th, 2020. Oh, boy.
Indiana beat Michigan.
Indiana, led by Michael Penix, beats the Wolverines 38-21 to continue a hot start and stay undefeated.
So you think it happens again?
I think it happens again. There's something about Michael Penix, he just wins. And it does. I mean, the fact that he could bring Indiana football, make them relevant for a couple of years is unbelievable. So I'm riding the hot hand. I'm going with a better quarterback. I think Michael Penix Jr. gets it done.
All right. Well, hey, maybe we'll have to see next week if we can do a final show where we just talk the national championship game or something. We'll have to see what next week brings. But Louisville just scored, so it's 21-14 almost halftime, and then Oklahoma State 3-0 over A&M. They just started in the Texas Bowl. You know the bowl game I forgot, guys? I forgot Iowa State. I forgot where is it? I just
Fighting
closed it
Matt
out.
Campbell?
We'll end on that one. It was Iowa State 7-5 in the Liberty Bowl. They're minus 10.5 to Memphis. The game is played in Memphis. I forgot that one. C-Bus, who you like?
Oh, give me. You said who's how bad is Iowa State favored?
It says Iowa State minus 10.5.
Woo.
That's a big number.
It is a big number. I'll take Iowa State to win, but give me Memphis in the points.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that. Medicis, how about you?
I'm taking Iowa State in the Who Cares Bowl.
Jake, how about you?
Let's go Memphis. Why not?
Memphis at home, minus 10.5. I'm gonna go Iowa State. I love Matt Campbell. I think they were better down the stretch this year. They started off bad. I think they got beat to an FCF school to start the year.
They did.
So I'll go with Iowa State.
They did it for sure.
Well, guys, it was fun to talk some college football. It's been a while since we've been able to talk some college football, but it was definitely fun to get back and see you guys and be able to talk through some football again.
Yeah, C-Bus has never looked so good.
I know. I figured.
So
I
are
finally
you fair to say
figured it out.
Michigan-
Just turn off the camera.
Michigan wins. Can we dump mayonnaise on you, Rock? Just like the mayonnaise bowl?
Well, I'm wondering, what was the one that was like the coffee bowl or something? They dumped was it coffee they dumped on the
No, there
coach?
was the fries. The on Boise, they did the fries.
Yeah.
They did the French fries dump out, but
Well, normally I would say I love all these bowl games.
You don't want Michigan to vacate the. They're just got to vacate the win.
Let me at least enjoy it.
You don't want them to win it anyways. They're just going to take the ring anyway. So.
Let me enjoy it until Jim Harbaugh goes to the Chargers at the end of the season. And then I'll have to hear Les Miles, or then I'll have to hear that Brian Kelly's coming to Michigan when that job sure owned Moore's job.
What are you talking about? Lincoln Riley's coming.
No. We'll see. Hey, he's got $11.5 million on the table. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
We'll see
like
if the
Fisher's sitting at home making what, $70 million just sitting around.
I know it's a lot of money, but we'll see what happens. All right, guys. Well, listen, appreciate it. Stay in touch, and we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good. Always
all right,
fun.
y'all. Happy New Year.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Coach.
So it's great to finally get everybody back together. We ran a little bit over. I had a lot of games on there to go through and pick. So thanks to C-Bus, thanks to Coach DeCola, thanks to Coach Medicis tonight for coming on. I'll let you know when the next show is going to be. I got to see if Medicis is up for Sunday for the Mohawk Valley Sports Watch, the podcast. I'll have to see if he's available. If not, we'll see who can go on Sunday, but I'll let everybody know. So I want to thank everybody for jumping on tonight and tuning in. Have a good evening. Have a safe and happy New Year's, and we'll see you again.